or anything?
We have been reading The Essence of Buddhism by Tonglen Rinpoche.
Yes.
I believe.
We just got started the 9 stages of shamatha
Yeah, we were reading that yesterday, last one, right?
last time, yeah.
Yes. So we've been on the link between wisdom and compassion, and just read the 9 stages of shamatha. Before that, we were on the obstacles to meditation.
Right. Were there any questions that came up during your reading, or anything else that you'd like to talk about? I can certainly just kind of talk a little bit more about meditation, which is a very important part of the Buddhist path, that's for sure.
The only thing that jumps out of my mind was my own ego and arrogance when he mentioned that there were 9 points of posture in this particular teaching. And I was, what? That's not right. So that was just my ego running amok.
Yeah, well, it depends on what system. Sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 7, sometimes there's 9. You know, you hear different things. The sutra, it depends on, we're talking about sutra or tantric teachings, and the tantra adds a little bit more about the drops and winds and channels. And so, you know, like Kempo Rinpoche always says, to have the thumb in the ring joint and gentle fist, and tongues resting on the roof of the mouth, and all these things come from the tantric or the Vajrayana. When you read the sutras, it's a little bit more simplified. So sometimes in the Mahamudra tradition, you'll see different things as well. So what are those 9 that he talked about?
Someone had a question, Lama.
Yes, okay.
As someone who didn't read the book,
Okay.
did it go over the 9 breaths of purification, or or any practices to release stale air, and how important is that as a practitioner to do before doing like sitting practice?
So again, if you would you repeat that again? What is the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear some of it.
I didn't read the text, so I was curious if in the text it talked about the 9 breaths of purification, or I know that there are other practices that one is encouraged to do to release stale air, or to release.
Yes.
And I'm curious how important that is.
Well, that is your primary source of energy, is the air that you breathe. And again, you can go for a while without eating and drinking. You can't go long without breathing. So depending, particularly when you're doing your practice, so sometimes people start the first thing in the morning, and the stale air from breathing all night to do pranayama. You know, that is pranayama is breathing exercises. It really comes from the study of, you know, we're talking about the drops and winds and those kinds of things to purify the body. And so it's usually an alternate nostril kind of breathing. And how important is it? You know, you can do without it, but we're trying to raise the level of the awareness, you know, and the chi of the body, the vital life force. So doing the pranayama is like putting gas in the tank, as well as purification and cleansing, getting all the stale air out, you know, of your lungs, and filling it with the pure, fresh air. And you know, most people breathe very shallowly. And so to take good full breaths and exhaust it completely does help to recharge the body, and is important. It's called pranayama in the Sanskrit, and it is part of the yogic tradition.
Kempo Tenkyan, during a meditation class I took from him in September, the peaceful 9 rounds of breath purification practice is what he titled.
That's it.
Yeah, and he recommended it first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and before you start, and lead in as you start your meditation practice. And he actually keeping our hands in the Vajra, and bringing it up and making this really nice little swirl, and then doing that, and then when that one comes down, doing it really nicely, and so.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't have any contradiction with what he said. So, and you may want to, if you remember that, to teach that Jamsala, you can do that. So, it's not everyone did that study with him, and it takes a little time to go over that. And so, I would say that would be good for you to pass along.
As far as the 9 points, this is recommended as the most beneficial. This is on page 60. Is a cross-legged posture with hands resting, one on the other in the lap or resting on the knees, shoulders slightly stretched, head slightly inclined forward, spine absolutely straight like an arrow, gaze directly downward and concentrating on the tip of the nose, mouth slightly open, the tip of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth, and the breath even and relaxed.
There you go. So yeah, that is really the Mahamudra variety. So, having the tip of the tongue resting. Also, we say, helps reduce saliva and swallowing, but it also is like a bridge to the chi, for the flow, the winds of the body. And so all of these the factors, depending upon the teachings or the tradition and the level of the student, that's what makes the difference, really.
I made mention that one thing was left out, and Mike and I looked at each other and said, well, maybe this was for beginning students and there wasn't stuff for advanced. So things that we might have been told to do, closing of the lower gate was not mentioned in this. So
yeah, often it is though. So that is definitely part of closing the lower gate, which means that you just kind of clench the buttocks, and as if you're doing a Kegel exercise, hold it gently for a little bit, and just relaxing it, and then carry on from there. So yeah, that is definitely one of the postures as well.
thank you, Lama. We were going over all the obstacles and the antidotes.
Yes.
Could you speak on some of the antidotes to our obstacles in meditation?
Well, the two main obstacles is overexcitement and lethargy, torpor. So, and again, you will hear different antidotes to that. But basically, and I'm not sure, I don't have that text in front of me, but the way I usually teach it as the antidotes to lethargy, for example, you feel tired and your head is beginning to fall, and your mind kind of gets dark and your focus is not very sharp. We want to bring the energy up. Usually what happens with the lethargy is it just sinks down, and your mind becomes dark and fuzzy. So the way you bring the energy up is you can imagine at the heart center a white lotus and a white pearl, illuminated kind of white pearl, and it comes up the central channel to the top of the head, and you imagine it like a bright light that illuminates you, and your energy rises up and literally brightens your mind. I often use the example of when you're trying to sleep and someone comes in and turns on a light and you get all upset about it. I'm trying to sleep, turn that light off. Well, in this situation, we want to turn the light on and we don't want to be sleeping. So we use that imagery. And you can also, sometimes you're too warm, that will make you lethargic. So you can, open a window or do some more breathing, or you can, do some walking meditation. There's a variety of things to wake up, from that lethargy or torpor. So that is the main thing is bringing the energy up and imagining a white light just kind of immersing you in this white light, clarity and energy. And the other one is overexcitement. We're just too involved. Our minds are just wild. You may have had that experience, and we need to tame it. We need to calm it down, and we want to sink it. So, I teach Tai Chi, and there's a point forefinger was below the navel. We call the Dantian in the martial arts. But you can imagine a black lotus inverted, it's like upside down, and a black pearl that descends through the central channel to that point. Forefinger was below the navel, about a third of the way in the body. Or you can have it just kind of sink into the center of the earth and just to ground you and bring the energy down. When you're overexcited, over emotional, it tends to rise up, and we want to sink it down. It's just the opposite of torpor or lethargy. And in that way, you can take, you're watching the breath, inhaling, exhaling down, and let that energy sink. And it's like a pearl-sized globe that's substance-less. It's again, doesn't have any particular substance, but it is in our mind where feeling that energy sinking down and grounding us. And you can take several breaths, bringing that energy down, and then you let go of the antidote when you feel that security, grounded. So like a mountain, you're like a mountain. That's the image. Immovable.
We have a question.
Yes.
Kathy, did you want to ask?
Yeah. Good evening, Lama. My workplace right now is very chaotic. There's a lot going on. People are quitting. There's a lot of back gossip and stuff going on. So I was wondering, because the Eightfold Path, that should always guide my decision making, correct? Is that like...
Yeah, that's the essence of the Buddhist teaching, is to follow the Eightfold Path. So we have, the first one being there's suffering, and the second one being there's a cause for that suffering. And the third is that we can get over our suffering. The Buddha said that he considered it like a physician. And so when you go to see the doctor, there's a problem, like you're saying. This is the problem, this is the sickness, or it will result in some kind of sickness in your body, speech, and mind. So we know there's suffering. We know there's a cause for that suffering, which is our attachments and aversions. But the good news is that we can go beyond that suffering. And the way we do that is through the Noble Eightfold Path. And that's correct. So that's always the focus, and how to cultivate the merit and the Eightfold Path. So yes, so far so good. Right.
So it's better just because the people at work try to draw me into these conversations, but it's because I'm trying very hard to do the Eightfold Path to just walk away, right? Is that,
it's best to just remove yourself from it.
Okay.
Right speech is a very important part of that. And, gossip is really, that can go downhill in a hurry, and you start, blaming people, or, thinking bad thoughts about people, and, that degenerates in a hurry. And you can see what it's doing. You say there's a lot of disruption and bad feelings and low energy, and that's definitely the cause.
So it would not be un-Buddhist of me to find another job. These people are suffering
Yes, they are.
But I'm struggling with is it selfish of me then to not want to suffer and therefore get a different job? Because I've been job seeking just to get out of this whole situation.
Yeah, well, if you can't change them and you can't change the situation, it's better to leave it and find something that is more conducive. What kind of work are you doing?
I'm a special needs teacher.
Yeah, well, that takes a lot of energy and it takes a good heart and as well, and it's not easy.
It's not my children, it's not the classes that I teach. It's the administration versus the teachers, and it's just there's been a lot, like we had 3 teachers quit today. There's a lot going on, and
Well, you may be the next one.
yeah. But I'm trying to do the Eightfold Path, so
That
I'm
may be part
using
of
that
the
as my
Eightfold Path.
decision. Okay, thank you.
Yes. But you'll have to sort that one out. But from what you said, if you can't change the environment, you know, and the people and those kinds of things, then you just have to change, you know, the situation yourself and leave it. I mean, it's tough, you know, finding a job is not so easy, but being in an environment that goes against your principles and goes against your Dharma practice, that is not skillful, and that will take away from their progress on the path.
Okay, thank you.
You know, the Buddha's basic teaching is to cultivate virtue, avoid wrongdoing, and taming our mind. So, I mean, you may cultivate patience in that situation, but you know, and hopefully you're avoiding wrongdoing through participating in that kind of wrong speech. And you're taming your mind. I mean, first one has to be aware of it, and it sounds like people are just not really interested in taming their mind or cultivating virtue or avoid wrongdoing. So you have to find an environment, particularly a place where you're working all the time with like-minded people would be best, you know, who are really cultivating the virtue and are really working on themselves in that way. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like that's where you're finding yourself.
No, not at all. The problem is I walk away from the drama that there is going on, and then they're now saying things about me like, are you too good? You're too good to stand with us. And I'm trying to follow the Eightfold Path. I'm trying to
You can just say that, you know, I just don't want to be involved in this conversation.
Okay.
That's fine. I mean, you don't have to explain yourself really. You know, they're gonna, boy, that sounds rough. They're gonna turn their attention on you and blame you for being not contributing to the.
Well, if I don't stand with the teachers are saying, well, you must be with administration, and then administration's like,
Well,
and I don't want to.
You stand with the Noble Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
So hold that intention, hold that motivation.
Okay.
I mean, particularly in the beginning, you know, being with like-minded people are important. Have you taken refuge?
Yes, almost a year ago.
So, you know, one of the things when you take refuge is avoiding people who distract you from the path or who are not aligned with your way of thinking. They are distractions and contributors to, you know, violating your commitment to your refuge commitment in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So you want to be true to that. And
Okay.
that supersedes everything else.
You have another comment?
Actually, I have 2 now. So my first comment was, it sounds like what you need is a union in your workplace. And which is beside what we're talking about. And the second comment I was gonna make, Lama Losang, you were saying that how we should avoid people that distract us from the path, but I don't think that's what's actually written in the Tantra. What's written in the Tantra is that we should not, it says, I went to a teaching not long ago about this, that we should not live among people who dissuade us from our practice. That we shouldn't specifically live with people, but I mean, it's normal to come up against people that are going to distract us from, we live in samsara. You know, we live in a very samsaric age, so it's normal to come up against people.
That's true. And it depends on your level of practice and your capacity. So, I mean, if you don't have the capacity to do it, then it's better to find something different. If you can rise to the occasion and generate skillfully generate the patience, and I was saying that to generate the patience and the confidence to not be sucked in to that situation, great. But as novice practitioners, it's not always so easy. And if that is the constant environment that you find yourself in, well, then you have to make a choice. True, the bodhisattva would be working for the benefit of all beings, but it depends upon your capacity, to do it. And you will have to make the choice about that. But we see it all around. You see, when we look at any of the media things, people are constantly bickering and backbiting and blaming and name calling and all those things. I mean, that is certainly true. Certainly in our society right now, and probably planetarily, we're coming in, it seems like a fairly dark time. So if you can rise above it, it is all empty, it is all a dream. And if you can maintain that kind of view, that's great. You just have to recognize where you are and be honest, about that. So you can pursue the path with diligence and motivations and loving kindness and compassion towards all. And maybe the best thing you can do is walk away from that situation and not stay in it, and be compliant with it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. It's we don't have a union because we're a charter school. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but it's I find it exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting. It can be exhausting if you engage in it, with an ego. But if you see it and you see their suffering and you understand that is like a dream, but you don't have to participate in this particular dream and involve yourself in it to the point of exhaustion. But like I say, it depends upon your capacity. So if you're finding yourself exhausted and you really can't go beyond that, then you're going to get yourself run down. You're going to get sick, and that's not going to be a benefit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, these are very practical questions, and this is the life we lead, and it's important to kind of put the Dharma into practice, and that depends upon the level of our accomplishment in the Dharma. And some people may be able to, are more skillful at this point than others in dealing with that. But to be in an environment where there is, the constant bickering or backbiting and blaming and confusion, all those kinds of things, that is an energy that is not very positive, and it will lead. It is exhausting, actually, to be in that environment. But everyone's different. Everyone, we're all different on the path. And, how we deal with adversity is really a very personal kind of process based on causes and conditions, based on our own level of understanding and our view. But we're all kind of working on those, that eightfold path, starting with right light, we want to have the right view. That is the first. We have to see things clearly. And then everything else is an aspect of that view, which is empty. You know, we're all bodhisattvas, we're all Buddhas, really. But that's not the attitude that we can take 24/7 for the most part. We're still in the process of purification and accumulating merit, and you know, that's what Mindro is for, the four, you know, extraordinary practices. But the first is the four ordinary practices, you know, this preciousness of this human birth, which we should be contemplating. You know, it is such a blessing and not an accident that we're born human, and we're in this situation, which is great good fortune, actually. We could be in a lot of different realms and with more suffering. And even in the higher realms, there's more distraction. You know, when you have all of your needs met and you're blissed out and very happy, you don't turn your mind to the Dharma. You know, it's this kind of situation as human beings that is considered the most auspicious for walking the path that the Buddha taught. So we have to use it, though. So the first, as you know, the first of these four ordinary foundations that we should be contemplating on a regular basis. The first is this precious human birth, and we don't want to waste it. We don't want to be constantly, until we have some level to be able to work within a toxic environment, and I'm calling this a toxic environment. We should find one that is more conducive to our mind and to our practice. And the second being, you know, impermanence. We just don't know how long we're going to have on this planet, how much time we have, and to waste it, you know, in a situation that's toxic and interferes or is in conflict with our practice. At least, you know, it appears to be so. Then, you know, we just have to really investigate that and see how we can either make it, you know, workable or leave it. And the other one is karma. If we stay in that situation and, you know, we are more likely to, you know, create a negative karma for ourselves, which we don't want to do. We can also, of course, generate positive karma, but, you know, if you're surrounded by negativity, it does create a likelihood that we're going to succumb at some level, as you say, even when we get tired from trying to endure these toxic environments. It's exhausting, as was said. So that does reduce our capacity for practice. You know, we're tired. And the last is just understanding samsara, the unsatisfactoriness of it. And as you said, you know, this is a samsaric world, and we are in samsara. There's no escape until we become a Buddha, and we no longer have the seeds of karma. They have been completely, you know, Sanjay, which is the Buddha, the name for Buddha in Tibetan, Sanjay, has exhausted all negative seeds and has accomplished all virtue. That is the essence of the Buddha. But until we get to that point, we are vulnerable. You know, even the bodhisattvas still have, you know, work to do until they attain the highest level and then attain Buddhahood. But we are just fledglings, you know, we are just, we have some things to learn, and we want the environment to be conducive to that. If you surround yourself with negativity, it does drain you.
It does, because I'm trying to do, you know, right speech, right action, but people are like, you know, kind of, you're not with us, you're against us, and I'll walk away, and they're like, well, there you go, just walk away, and don't you feel this, and it's not right, and
Yeah.
it's is there a, I don't know, like, is there like a, I don't know, I just walk away. And
I mean, sometimes there's a saying, misery loves company. So, but you don't have to join that misery. That's optional.
okay.
We have a comment here.
What sometimes works for me, and I will say sometimes because it doesn't work all the time. When I'm in a circumstance like that, I just don't walk off. I will say, thank you for inviting me into this conversation. I just choose not to participate. Sometimes I say, thank you for the invitation to this drama party. I don't want to play. And then I turn around, but I make the statement of, this is something I'm uncomfortable. I'm just not turning my back on you. I'm turning my back because you are making me uncomfortable.
And sometimes that's good for people to hear. Maybe they will reflect on that. What is so uncomfortable about it? And maybe, they'll contemplate that a little bit, like we were just talking about, turning your mind to the Dharma. But, if they have the seeds for that, they will. But there are different causes and conditions. Maybe they just want to, it's hard to say, what that's all about. But you know how you feel, and if you feel exhausted and having to put up that wall of resistance continually, that is going to lead to a suffering for you. I mean, you will become exhausted, and when you get run down, you don't have the same strength, you don't have the same will, you don't have the same motivation. It can definitely wear you down. So you always have to balance the what do they say, cost benefit, staying and engaging or leaving. What is the benefits of that? So we do have choices. We're always confronted with different choices, and how skillful we are in making those choices is really the level of our understanding and the level of our realization and our capacity, to do that.
It's hard. It's hard because they'll say things to me like, I thought you believed in karma. This is bad karma. And it's just,
yeah, you know the deal. You don't have to play. As Shamsa was saying, you don't have to engage in that. You can't win. They're going to drag you into it one way or another if you stay. That's so it is a choice you'll have to make.
there's 52 days of school left.
Yeah. But right view is very important. That is the guide to the entire path. It's the foundation for the study of the path to liberation. And, our study must begin with the proper motivation. And it is important that we have an experiential understanding and not just an intellectual or theoretical knowledge. And we accept responsibility for our progress, where we are on the path, step by step. And in so doing, we take responsible for our destiny. We may not be able to change circumstances in our life, but we can change our responses to them. And so we have to make, when we talk about right activity, it's based on our right views, and our views and beliefs are key in determining our attitudes and actions. So our views about ourselves and the world, shape our perceptions and establish our values. And if you have these values, they create the lens through which we interpret the world and the meaning of our existence. And knowing that everything arises because of causes and conditions enables us to take responsibility for our actions. And for some reason, you find yourself in this situation. We just have to consider the right view as the foundation for our spiritual journey and directs our activity in the world. And as we will see, there are many levels of the Buddhist teachings. I think we've spoken about these before, the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana teachings and the Mahamudra teachings. And each of these traditions have developed in ways, they define these various methods. somewhat differently, actually. But it is important for us to continuously strive to develop the right view in our meditation practices and in our daily life. And that leads, to right thought. That is the second of the Noble Eightfold Path. It starts with the right view, and then the next is, having the right thought. And you're wrestling with this situation, and it expands the realization of how our thoughts and emotions are linked together. This includes the cultivation of, proper motivation and scrutinizing our habitual self-centered ways of thinking to a more altruistic way. So you're not, we have to think both of ourselves and of others. And the Buddha said, as you think, you become. So if you're finding yourself, exhausted at the end of the day, and you're indulging in negative thoughts or that lead to negative actions in body, speech, and mind, that is one thing. And on the other hand, thinking in a positive way has a positive effect on our emotions and our actions. And we become more loving and caring and compassionate. And, this is based on three aspects, really. That is non-attachment, goodwill, and harmlessness. Do no harm. That is a basic the kind of part of the view. And these three aspects help develop our wisdom mind, and the practice of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. So we can train our mind, and this is enhanced by meditation. So continually do your meditation, contemplate these things that we're talking about. We can meditate on the suffering inherent in our constant pursuit of worldly desires, and gently lead our minds toward loving kindness and compassion. We all have to work. We have to earn a living. We have to pay the rent. We have to buy the food. We have other obligations. But meditation on loving kindness is the best remedy for anger and self-cherishing and ego clinging and ill will. So, we have to set ourselves in our own internal environment. So make sure you continue to practice, meditation. So we've been talking about meditation. This is certainly part of it when we talk about right thought. We can train our mind, and this is enhanced by meditation. We can meditate on the suffering inherent in our constant pursuit of worldly desires, and gently lead our minds toward loving kindness and compassion. And meditation on loving kindness is the best remedy for anger and self-cherishing and ego clinging. But you have to understand that, and ill will. And so everyone's, the Buddha taught 84,000 different methods to tame our mind. But the most effective antidote for harmlessness is meditation on compassion. We don't want anyone to suffer. And clearly the people who are going through this process that you work with are suffering. That's this expression is an expression of suffering. And in our meditation practice, we begin to developing our motivation. We are doing meditation for the benefit of all suffering beings. That's true. And we dedicate the merit generated from doing the practice for the happiness and well-being of everyone. So from your side, when you do your meditation, dedicate the merit to their happiness and well-being, and may they find the truth and develop compassion and loving kindness in their heart. So I think you probably know about dedicating merit. So you always want to do that as part of your meditation practice, to include the accumulation of merit. And you can do that for a specific purpose, and it may be for your school, or a sick person or an animal or a success of a particular project. You can dedicate the merit for anything, but basically we want to dedicate the merit for the enlightened mind of all beings. May they all attain Buddhahood. May all sentient beings attain Buddhahood. And this way we offer our practice of meditation, reciting mantras, making prostrations, performing acts of generosity, with the intention of accumulating this merit for the benefit of beings. And the third of these eightfold path is right speech. And this means, becoming aware of our speech for starters. And it would seem like those that we're talking about are really not aware of the nature of their speech. And this step on the Noble Eightfold Path comes under morality. And our speech is very important. And we can tell a lot about a person from their speech. We can't see another person's mind, so we often judge or are judged by our behavior and our speech. And we train in being mindful of our speech. We consider the consequences of our speech, you know, is this speech harmful or helpful? And I mean, other examples of things that we can develop pure speech, you know, that's reciting mantras is one way we can do it. Om Mani Padme Hum, the mantra of the Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of Great Compassion, is certainly a way, you know, mantras mean mind protection. So when we become absorbed or overcome by emotions or the feelings, you know, mantras such as this can be a powerful tool in transmuting negative emotions and can be used at any time and under any circumstance. I mean, you don't have to say them out loud, just internally. You know, Om Mani Padme Hum. It's a skillful means. And being mindful of the right speech, we are developing a conscious awareness of words and what we are saying. And now more than ever, as we were saying, speech can have a tremendous capacity leading to either good or bad consequences. And we have a wide range of arenas to express ourselves, and we interact in social media and other forms of speech, including the written word in our texts and digitally, you know, digital online communication. We must be mindful, you know, that is considered speech as well. So right speech has basically 4 elements to it. So when we're considering right speech, the first is abstaining from false speech, you know, or lying, and cultivating truthful speech. And the second is abstaining from slanderous speech and cultivating speech that promotes friendship and harmony. And it doesn't sound like this particular kind of speech that we're talking about is promoting friendship and harmony. And the third is abstaining from harsh speech, yelling, insulting, sarcasm. And the fourth is abstaining from idle chatter. You know, this can include television, radio, magazines, speech that is harmful or hurtful, anything that we can hear, you know, or listening to. That is also in this domain of harmful speech. And we often indulge in unskillful forms of speech, you know, such as lying and gossip, harsh words and divisive speech. So we just want to be mindful about that. You know, even body language, we call it body language, you know, can also include how we communicate with others, you know, such as communicating a negative feeling towards others with harmful gestures, giving someone the finger, you know, when you're driving and they cut you off, or, you know, there's a variety of ways, just raising your eyebrow at someone, thinking like, oh, you know, what's behind that situation. So through this it's difficult in society, you know, that manipulates the truth and has turned, you know, falsehood and deception, you know, into a way of life that impacts us daily. So make a long story short, it is important to be mindful of our speech in all of its aspects. Any other questions or comments? We can go on and talk about the other, you know, those were the first 3, the right view and right thought and right speech. But if you want to go through the other aspects, we can do that. Right action would be next, usually in the way it's presented. Any other questions or comments?
Lama, you mentioned meditating on compassion. Normally, when we have our students, we're talking about, you know, single focus meditation, one pointed meditation on the breath or a sound or a photo. To me, when I hear meditating on compassion, I think Vipassana.
Well, there's lots of forms of meditation, aren't there? When I think of that, it'd be more like Tonglen.
Okay. would you talk then a little bit more on a practice for compassion, since you've been mentioning that a few times?
Yes, so the way that we usually do that, as I mentioned, is with the exchange of self for others, or the Tonglen meditation, which is the way we develop loving kindness, which is wanting others to be happy. And the compassion is wanting them not to suffer. So we spoke a little bit about the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. But in addition to that meditation, we can talk about Tonglen, which is a skillful means for developing compassion and loving kindness. And we usually can even start with ourselves. Is the way this is done is one is seated, and you begin with shamatha, or tranquility meditation, and kind of calm the mind. So the shamatha is to make our minds workable. You know, it's the beginning of our path to meditation. Tranquility meditation, before we can do anything else, we have to have the mind stable. When we say stay, you know, it stays and it's not running off. I often use the example of a puppy. You know, we're training a puppy and we say sit and stay. Does it sit and stay? Generally not. It runs off at the least attraction, you know, and our minds are the same way. And so our lives are very complicated and stressful, but we can learn to use our meditation practice to develop calmness and tranquility. And it won't bring immediate results. We really have to train it, just like we would be training our puppy. And the basic meditation, as you have been studying, is called calm abiding or tranquility meditation, shamatha in Sanskrit, and shinay in Tibetan. But the word, as you know, in Tibetan is gom, G-O-M, and it means becoming familiar with. We're beginning to become familiar with our own mind. And most of us have not really taken the time to look inward and to make friends with our mind. We say my mind, but what does that mean? That is the meaning of meditation, you know, to directly experience the clear awareness of our mind and to rest naturally in that state without distraction and our constantly mental chatter, you know, that we call our monkey mind, which is constantly leading us here, there, and the next place. So we devote time every day to our meditation practice so that we can develop this shamatha and be stable. And then we can go into deeper levels of meditation, such as vipassana. And that is the seventh and eighth level of the Noble Eightfold Path, is right meditation, you know, right concentration. And that right begins with a shamatha. And then as we get more and more stability, we can become more, that deepens more and more into samadhi, which is undistracted, when we're just resting in the mind's natural state of clear awareness. But one does not generally begin at that level. So it is a matter of degree, and it's a matter of training. Meditation is mind training, and following the instructions on shamatha requires those practices, you know, whether we're training our stubborn mind or a distracted puppy, it comes to the same thing. Motivation for cultivating, you know, a regular daily practice requires first an understanding of the value of meditation and why meditation is important. And once we firmly establish the importance of meditation in our lives, our progress is assured. But until that time, if it's not a daily practice, we may find, focusing on the breath boring, or, we don't have the time for it, or, we can take a little time from our Facebook or whatever, our devices, and, but it's important to establish a daily practice. And we've talked about that in the past. Find a place in your house that is quiet and safe, and set up a pillow and a chair and a little puja table like you have at the center, and that's the place where you do your meditation, and you do that on a regular basis. And I will come back to the point of the Tonglen, but the first is the physical posture that we've been talking about. Take a stable seated position, place your hands, straighten the spine, lower the gaze, tuck in the chin, place the tongue, all those kinds of things. And your mental attention, goes, awareness of the breath. Usually we use the breath, and follow the in breath and the out breath. Initially begin silently counting the breath. I usually begin teaching meditation by just 21 breaths. So inhaling, exhaling 1, inhaling, exhaling 2, just to the count of 21. And then as you continue that for 21 days, 21 breaths for 21 days, after you've successfully done that without distraction, then you can let go of the counting and mindfully just follow the breath. When you're breathing in, you're aware of breathing in. You may feel the coolness on the inhale, warmth on the exhale, etc. But first you have to establish that kind of focus. So, and then when the attention wanders, you are quick to notice the distraction as it arises. You can label it thinking if you like, but let go of the distraction immediately and return your attention to the breath. That is part of the mind training. So the mind is not too loose and it's not too tight. By that I mean, the Buddha gave the example. He was talking to Shroda, and the Shroda, one of his students said, the mind, it was distracted. Now, how should I do meditation? And he knew that Shroda was also played a stringed instruments, and he asked Shroda about, does your string instrument play well when it is when the strings are loose? And he said, no, but you can't play it like that. And how about if it's too tight? He said, no, it won't be right like that either. He said, it's like that with the mind, not too tight. The body and mind are relaxed and at ease, no strain or forcing attention. Mind is vast and like space and free of stress. It's not too tight. For Westerners, often the problem with their meditation is it's too tight. They're too rigid. And then that is exhausting. You have to be relaxed and at ease. That's true when I'm teaching Tai Chi as well. The first principle is to relax. And when one's learning anything new, often they become very tense and stressed. So you have to relax, but not too loose. Just right. Mind is clear and free of dullness. Notice distractions as they arise and be mindful, remain present, and ride the wave of your breath. So these are just important considerations. We've been talking about meditation, so I think it's important that we mention those aspects. So let's see. Okay, we'll go to the Tonglen. So the Bodhisattva Sutra says, give yourself to others. And it contains stories of how bodhisattvas, Buddhas in training. That's what bodhisattvas are. They're Buddhas in training, just as we are. And you will be a Buddha as well. It's your destiny. If you stay on the path, there's two problems with meditation. And the first one is not starting, and the second one is not finishing. So we have to start, certainly, to get the result, but we can't give up. We have to continue until we attain the desired result. you know, no matter how many lifetimes that might take. So we're Buddhism training, and we give everything, you know, to benefit others. That is the bodhisattva. That's the virtue of the bodhisattva. But we are not asked, you know, to give blindly. We give out of the kindness of an open and loving heart. And to get the highest level of giving, we must first learn how to give. As we, you know, there's the 6 perfections. The first of which is the perfect generosity. So we make a habit of letting go and detaching from self-clinging. And the main practice for developing this letting go is called Tonglen. And this ancient form of meditation focuses on compassion, connecting with it, developing it, and learning how to apply it in everyday life. And as I mentioned, sometimes it's called exchanging self for other. So the practice of Tonglen is really pretty simple. In recent years, Tonglen as meditation has found receptive audiences, from spiritual to therapeutic to secular. It's being used in therapies around the world, and its popularity is increasing, which is good because it's a little different from our usual focus of our me first society. And as it turns out, the most powerful ways to be kind to yourself and create the causes of happiness in the future are by developing the strong intention and motivation to help others. That's how you create happiness for yourself in this life and in future lives. So people from all walks of life have found it beneficial. And the word Tonglen in Tibetan translates as sending and taking. And the practice belongs to a great body of wisdom called Lojong in Tibetan. Lo means mind and Jong means training. This mind training is considered one of the most important teachings in Buddhism. And Tonglen is a special application of mind training practice. It's a skillful means to cultivate bodhicitta. That's why, you know, when Jamsa said, you know, how do we do that? That is the first thing that comes to my mind, is the Tonglen practice, to cultivate bodhicitta, which is the mind of enlightenment, and learn how to be less self-centered and selfish. And our meditation trains the mind to be more loving and compassionate. So in addition to an intellectual understanding of bodhicitta from the teachings, it is important to cultivate the experience directly. And following, you know, this, we can do an exercise in Tonglen meditation. It'll help, these exercises can help to give birth to bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Anything that I've said so far, any comment or question? So like our other meditation practices, Tonglen practice begins with breath awareness and continues with the wish to establish all beings in happiness and free from suffering. It is an easy meditation to say, but not always so easy to do. And there are many different versions of this practice, traditional and modern. And the simplest form is simply connecting your motivation and breath. So as you inhale, you breathe in the discomfort, unhappiness, pain, distress, and their causes, and imagine that when you exhale, you share the light of happiness and health and well-being and their causes. As soothing rays of healing light fill the entire world with their benevolent healing power on the out-breath. So, as I said, it usually begins with yourself. So with you in a seating position, imagine yourself seated across from you. And you can, I'm doing this with you first, but you can put any person in that situation. It can be a loved one, it can be someone who's in pain and suffering, physically, mentally, emotionally, someone who you wish to be a benefit to. They may be alive or they may be passed away. It doesn't really matter. But if there's a connection there and you wish to be a benefit to them, then this would be appropriate. This practice is appropriate. So as I was mentioning, Tonglen is often practiced in stages. So well, just to go on with that visualization a little bit more, when you're breathing in, you imagine you are breathing in a dark, smoky-like cloud representing the suffering of that individual or individuals. And the darkness is transformed by your positive intention and the natural goodness of your heart. And then you send out healing love, compassion, and all that is needed and wanted in the form of brilliant light that enters that person or people, making them happy, or animal, it could be any sentient being, making them very happy and satisfying all of their needs. And so that it is a breathing, it is associated with the breath. Breathing in all the discontent and suffering as kind of a dark, smoky substance, and breathing out. The darkness is transformed by your positive intention, and you're breathing out natural goodness of your heart, and you're sending out this healing, compassion, love needed in the form of brilliant light that enters the person, surrounding them, filling them, and removing any obstacles, sorrow, sickness, and revealing their Buddha nature, the Buddha that they are, and satisfying all their needs. So after settling the mind in meditation, doing a little shamatha, we choose the object of our compassion, a person, an animal, group. We breathe in the smoky darkness of that specific distress, imagining the object of our meditation is relieved of all difficulties. And if we're doing that for ourselves, as I said, you are imagining yourself with all of your insecurities and anxieties and physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, whatever that is, imagining that situation, whatever it may be, and we breathe out, and we breathe in that like a smoky darkness of that distress. And imagine that you are relieving them of all of that distress. And it's entering you, and you're happy to do so, removing all of their difficulties, whatever that may be. We breathe out then soothing light, compassion. It touches, the object of compassion, which is yourself, that is seated across from you, bringing comfort and peace and joy and well-being, removing all the obstacles and just filling them with virtue and well-being. This is followed by a phase of expanding the visualization. You can do that for as long as you like until it feels right. But as I say, it's a gradation. We start with ourselves, then we can add other loved ones, then we can add those who we may feel more neutral towards. But ultimately, we want to also bring this to those who we may have some kind of karma with that is distressing. We don't have such good feelings. They may have hurt us in some way. We may be harboring some negative feelings toward them. And this is also a way to remove that negative feeling. So as I say, this is followed by a phase of expanding the visualization to others. And expanding it out again to the farthest reaches of space, into the multiverse, until all suffering is alleviated and all goodness is shared with all beings. That is one way we cultivate compassion. And you can really spend some time in this practice of Tonglen. It is, and it minimizes and gradually uproots the conflicting emotions that we have of our self-clinging, and engages us physically, mentally, emotionally, and verbally in developing tolerance and patience and compassion and loving kindness.
Lama, we had a question of, while doing the Tonglen practice, does it have to be one person at a time that you're focusing on?
No, it doesn't. It can be a group of people, but you know, you want to try to be as clear as you can with each of them, and so that you're taking their suffering and distress, and you're giving them all peace and comfort and healing in its many different aspects. So we can do this meditation together. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. So we have time to do this meditation together, and we can do that. So sit comfortably. Yeah, again, begin by sitting comfortably. And then begin with shamatha meditation, maintaining your awareness of the breath. As you breathe in, be present and aware that you are breathing in. As you breathe out, be aware that you're breathing out. Be mindful of any distraction, any distracting thoughts, emotions. As soon as they arise, and let them go, return to the breath again and again. And then link your intention to the breath. On the exhale, breathe out all the light of your basic goodness and wish to benefit suffering beings. Or if there's a particular person you'd like to put in that chair or chairs in front of you, that's fine. And breathe out that basic goodness, love, compassion, well-being, healing light, and the wish to benefit that person or persons. And with that, you alleviate any pain and suffering by sending out loving kindness and compassion. And breathe in like a smoky darkness of unhappiness and suffering in all its myriad forms into your heart, where it is transformed into light. And then breathe out again, that light of healing, love, compassion. And do this sequence 3, 6, 9 times for that the person or animal or persons. And again, as a matter of degree, it can begin with those who you may have some connection with in a positive way, but gradually working your way to those who may be a little bit more difficult for you to want to make happy. They may have hurt you, and you're harboring some resentment, anger. And that is a poison for you. So you may be thinking of benefiting them, but even more so, it is benefiting you. So you do this sequence 3, 6, 9, as many times as you have time for. And after you complete that, you can extend your meditation to others who are scared and fearful, agitated, others who, again, you may have some negative connection with. Usually we do it with someone we love and someone we're more neutral with, the person at the bank or the grocery store, or the post person or whatever that we really don't know very well, but we do know them. And then someone, again, who that creates a little bit of disharmony. And imagine that distress is resolved, dissolved. So we're doing this quickly, but you get the picture. And then we expand this goodwill and imagine it reaching to the far limits of space. Throughout time and space, which is unlimited. And we are only limited by the scope of our imagination and our motivation. You know, this is the Bodhisattva attitude. Allow your heart and natural goodness to shine unreservedly and touch the world with its blessing of love and compassion and wisdom. I have many examples of this. I do it frequently. And for example, when I was flying recently, I think I may have mentioned this before, but it is a good example. There was a mother and her young child in the aisle across from me, and we were about to take off, and the child was frightened, anxious, and crying. And the mother was trying her best to calm the child without much success, and was becoming frustrated and irritated herself. And in this situation, I began doing Tonglen meditation, inhaling the fear, panic, anxiety that the child was feeling, and the irritation the mother was experiencing, and breathing out calm, serenity, tranquility to both. And the child almost immediately began to calm down, and consequently, so did the mother. And I've had the experience many times of doing this. I can't say it always works like that, but it certainly seems to bring a peace and ease. In this situation, it did to the mother and child. So is there any question about that? You know, Tonglen is not just for when you're sitting in meditation. It can also be done, you know, as part of your life, wherever you go, just as I mentioned, and whatever you're doing, you can offer any activity for the benefit of others, at work, at home, while eating, or engaging in any activity. For example, when you're taking a walk, you can review this thought in your mind: may all beings experience happiness. And when you inhale, think, may all beings be relieved of suffering. And when you exhale, may I give others comfort and happiness. And this becomes a natural expression of the mind of enlightenment. And you can practice Tonglen with every breath you take. This attitude takes time to develop, but as it goes against our old habits and tendencies to think only of ourselves and our happiness. But this is the training of the Bodhisattva. This is the essence of the Mahayana path. So this is a skillful means.
Lama, would it be appropriate to, like, I'm just thinking about like a personal practice of, like, with a partner. Like, sometimes I find that while my husband and I are trying to talk through something difficult, we may go into it thinking we're going to try to be work through it graciously, and sometimes it may get a little bit heated. But if it would be appropriate if the spouse was open to it, to sit and practice Tonglen in front of each other, in a sense.
That would be wonderful. Yeah. But if you can't get this spouse to do it, you know, just chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, you know, silently to yourself as you're engaging in this process. This is the mantra of the Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of loving kindness and compassion. And it is the resonance. I mean, everything's vibration. And you'll find, and as I said, that the mantra means mind protection. So if you feel yourself getting all riled up and emotions rising to the surface, think of just doing Om Mani Padme Hum silently to yourself. And that can change everything right there, not only for you, but the whole environment.
Thank you.
But either of those things is fine. And if you could do Tonglen for each other and train in that way, that would be great. Yeah, no harm in that. So this is a means, a technique for accumulating merit in everyday life. You know, even if we can't sit down to practice, if we can be present in the moment and think of others, we are practicing. That is practice. And in this way, every activity of life can become the practice of bodhicitta.
A social worker, a therapist that is in one of my other groups is a Buddhist. And sometimes when she's doing her working with a client, they have this horrible, you know, expression that's coming out, you know, their anxiety or fear, something really horrible has happened to them. And sometimes we don't know what to say when someone, you know, hands us this big plate of their misery. We're not sure what to accept off of it. And she said that she's found a way that while they're talking, she's actively listening, but at that same moment, she's also engaging in Tonglen.
Yes,
way-
absolutely. Yeah. And that can change the whole environment. That's true. That's what I'm suggesting. So that's skillful. I mean, particularly, you know, in that situation with a client and someone who's really into their story. And, you know, that's kind of their modus operandi. That's their story. Of course, you've got to be skillful as a therapist as well. But just doing that really helps to discharge the charge in the room and can help to settle everything down. And certainly, if you're in a situation like that, you don't want to accelerate it by a knee-jerk response that gets angry or that is you know, creates more tension. So just being silent and doing Tonglen or a mantra recitation, and I certainly think that the Chenrezig Om Mani Padme Hum is a good one for that. But if you're doing a particular Yidam practice that you're familiar with, just resort to that. The best practice to do is the one that you are most familiar with and the one that you have most confidence in. So that would work just fine.
Thank you, Lama.
Yes, thank you. What else?
Just the three of us.
We have 4 online besides you and I in Lama.
Okay. Are there any questions that people want to either open their, you know, unmute themselves and you can speak, or put it in the chat and we can find it? Yeah, this is an opportunity, you know, these Tuesdays to talk about our practice, and it may be, you know, relevant to what we're talking about, but it may be something that you're dealing with in your practice that appears unrelated, but everything's fair game here, so don't be shy. If we can clarify, you know, some misunderstanding about a practice or about a situation, then that would be good.
It's not really a problem. I just wanted, before we get carried on and then the dedication of merit, I'm leaving in 3 weeks. I'm going back up to KTD for a month.
Fabulous.
I hadn't planned on it, but Lama Karma asked for my phone number one day out of the blue, and he called me and he told me he expected to see me up there by the 6th of April.
Fabulous. Well, I'm happy. Good. That's a good place for you to be. Yes.
It's his ninja class is going on for 5 days.
Yes. Wonderful.
Up for
So
that. And then Lama Kashi from Canada is teaching on Bardo.
wonderful.
The following 2 weekends is Kempo Ujin is teaching on the King of Aspiration.
Well, you're hitting a good time. Yes. Great. That is wonderful. Well, my regards to everybody there. Please let them know that we're fine in Florida, and please send them my love and affection. And I look forward to being back to KTD in the not too distant future.
Usually right away, if I see Lama Zopa, I usually send him your regards.
Yes, yes. Lama Zopa and I have been in contact with each other. He just did a program on the 35 Buddhas. And he's a good teacher. He doesn't think he's a good teacher, but he's a very good teacher, very knowledgeable, and a good translator. So yes, by all means, let him know that I send my regards. Are there any other announcements that need to be made? I think we can probably stop here. We just have a few minutes remaining, unless there's some other questions. And we'll dedicate the merit.
And as far as announcements going on here in Jacksonville, this Saturday, we will not be holding our regular Saturday morning practice of meditation, book study, and puja. We have our rummage sale going on. Our shrine room will be open for people who want to come in and sit for a little while, If anybody is not needs some instruction in meditation, Michael Turnquist and myself will be available to do that. See what else. That's about it.
All right. If there's no more questions, then we will dedicate the merit. And as I mentioned about dedicating the merit, at the end of your practice, or whether it's a sitting practice or at the end of the day, it's nice to do a review of the day. So when you're in bed, you're taking your last kind of breaths before sleep comes, think about the day and your skillful actions. We want to, there's a story about a monk who wished to cultivate virtue, as we were saying, and avoid wrongdoing. And his method was, when he did something unskillful, he would put a black stone in his pocket. And when he did a virtuous action, a skillful action, he would put a white stone in his pocket. And at the end of the day, he would check his pockets for the stones and count the black and white stones. And at first they were fairly even. Sometimes it was a little bit one or the other. But as he practiced this a little bit and become mindful about his actions, he only had white stones. So in the same way, as we review the day, we can think of our positive actions and the ones that may have not been so skillful. And we don't have to necessarily put stones in our pocket, but at the end of the day, review the day. And the things that were unskillful, vow not to do them again. It's the 35 Buddhas is, and I was mentioning Lama Zopa, is a confession of faults. And monks do that usually at least twice a month on new moon and full moon. And but we can do it, as a reflection on our activity for the day. So when we are at the end of the day, consider, which things, how was our speech? Were we unskillful in our speech, in our thought, in our action? And if we find those things, we want to uproot them. We want to cultivate virtue, and we want to uproot our wrongdoing. And when we think about things that were skillful and actually beneficial in all the myriad ways, we want to promote that. We want to accentuate that and continue. So a review of the day, and then we dedicate the merit for the benefit of all sentient beings and their enlightenment. And in so doing, if you're dedicating the merit to your enlightenment, that merit will not be diminished until you reach enlightenment, no matter how many lifetimes that is. The dedication is till enlightenment is reached. And you will have that karmic trace in your mind stream. Just like, when you take the refuge, for example, the way it is given in the Karma Kagyu tradition, the way I give it, is until enlightenment is reached, we maintain these vows. Sometimes it's given for this life, in some systems. We take the refuge vows for this life and this life only. But we really want to think of it from now until enlightenment is reached. May we always take our refuge. And may we dedicate this merit until enlightenment is reached for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay.
One more question.
Yes.
How do we undo wrongdoing if it's already been done?
By confessing it and vowing not to do it again. So there's a couple of things about that. You can do it, in your shrine in front of the Buddhas. You think that they are all there, and you're confessing to the Buddhas. You can confess to your Lama. You can do it in a variety of ways. But confession, this is part of the confession, and you confess the fault. The monks have to confess it in front of the Sangha. But you can confess it in your shrine. If you have an image of the Buddha, then that is considered the Buddha, and he is there in all this omniscient omniscience, and we'll hear that. And the most important thing is your confession in front of the Buddha. And so you confess it, and you have remorse for it, and you vow not to do it again. And so that is an important part of it. And once you're done, you're done. You've done it, and consider it done. I mean, there are some things, killing your mother and father, and killing or drawing blood from a Buddha, or disrupting the Sangha, or doing some certain things are considered really heinous crimes against oneself. And the karma of that is pretty intense. But for most of us, unless you're killing people, and even then, we saw how Milarepa was able to cleanse his negative actions. And so even that situation can be remedied with practice and confession. So that is how you do it. But you really have to be serious when you do that. When you say, I'm not going to do it again, I was raised Catholic. And so we did have confession, and you go, and the priest, and you confess your faults, and you were given certain prayers to do, and you do the prayers, and then you go do the thing again, whatever that was. But that is really not how this is seen. You really want to purify this by having the strong remorse for it, and vowing not to do it again. And whatever, amends you can make for it as a retribution. If, it was killing, for example, you may support, life in a certain kind of way, with, for animals, security and support, or, giving to certain charities or things like that. That is also a part of the confession. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
It's okay. Okay, if there's no other questions, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit. So for the benefit of all sentient beings and their ultimate enlightenment at this very moment, for the peoples of this earth and nations of the planet, may not even the names disease and famine and war and suffering be heard. Rather may pure conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always arise in the minds of beings, and may all be auspicious for us. We dedicate all this merit. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you. And good luck, and I'm happy for you, Jamso, that you can do that. What is the Nundro that's being done this time? Is there a particular?
It's 5 days, so I believe he's probably going to go from beginning to end.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Where are you in your practice?
I'm a third of the way through Guru Yoga.
Wonderful. Great.
My goal is to be done before Munlam in September.
Wonderful. Congratulations. All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing you on the second Tuesday of next month.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Lama.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night.